Hi all, John for a Tuesday morning, almost midday. As you'd expect this time of year, it's pretty cold and a bit overcast. Anyway, as you can see in the background here, I'm doing a picture of a swan. Now this is a tutorial in effect that I did for my art group. So I did it along with them, and obviously I'm quite a way behind them. But I've now bought it home because most of them are finished, and I'm doing the finishing touches now. Now I've started to put the reeds in. As you can see, it's a little bit blocked because of me and the camera, but you'll see it in a minute when I disappear. But I'm putting the reeds in. Now I quickly plotted them in last night, and it was one of them days, like I've mentioned in a previous video, when you don't really feel like it. So I plotted them in, and overnight I've looked at it and I thought, no, just aren't happy where they are. The perspective isn't right. The perspective in the reference wasn't great in my opinion. But so I'm going to have a look at this, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to record as I go along. Maybe there might not be much talking, we'll see, but you'll pretty much see what I'm going to do, and you'll see how to alter it in Soft Pastel. Hopefully it's going to be easy. The concept is quite easy. It's a case of brushing it away, starting again. I may not start again, I might just add some to it, but you'll see what I'm going to do. And hopefully just from observing and possibly hearing what I'm going to say might help you along a bit as we go. So without any further ado, I'm now going to get on with that. See you in a minute. So I've spent a couple of minutes sort of observing what I think I might do. Now what I think I might do is I actually might just add in a few more reeds and see where we go from there. I think when I start adding in all the tones and the highlights and all the shadows that will probably be a bit further down here, I think it might just kind of work out. So you can see, hopefully see a little light line there that I just plotted one in. I need one in there. That's going to push by overlapping the swan. Which in effect here will be a lighter colour, but if it's in here will be a darker colour. You'll get the sense of pushing him back, and hopefully the sense of three dimension. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to brush off some of this pastel here. Now that looks a bit scary because I'm going over the swan and ruining, well, not ruining in this case, but brushing off some of what I've already done. So I'm just going to plot in there, drawing in effectively by brushing off where I'm going to have that reed. Now that reed is going to be a good one because it's pushing him back, and at the same time it's going to fall behind these two reeds, so there'll be a shadow effect down here, and that'll give it a sense of depth. Now you can see I've already plotted these two in. I didn't brush them out, I just plotted them in, so I'm just going to actually brush that out because I'm going to keep them ones in there. So I'm just brushing off pastel so that I have enough tooth of the paper to actually plot in the more intense colour. I'm just going to have that touching the swan. This one is going to be a bent over reed. I'm probably going to have that bent over reed behind this reed, so again that's where you can get a sense of depth, and you'll obviously end up with shadows here. Now it's going to be quite difficult because I'm kind of in effect making this up. That one there, I'm just going to have him overlapping the swan a touch, so I'm just brushing in areas where I'm going to have more intense detail. So that's a way of getting it. You can draw straight onto it on certain papers. This paper I could do that if I wanted, but why make life hard for yourself? If you can draw away some of the pastel, and it's going to make adding the newer reeds easier. You get brighter, cleaner colours. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a reed that's going to come right through here and break up these areas. right? It's going to break up that area, and that will be behind these other reeds. I'm going to have it so it's falling there, right? So what I've got then is all these reeds. I've then got one going up there behind these reeds, one in front, another one behind, and then this one completely behind all of them. And I'm going to have that flopping there. So it's helping with all this reflection that I'm getting there, because it's going to push that back. It's going to give it a sense of form, perspective, depth, whatever you want to call it. Right, so that one goes up there. Right, now I'm just going to lightly put them in so that I know where they're going. That one's coming up over there, that one's going to come up over there. You can see already, just from putting in that little line, has already pushed that swab back. Right, so I've got one coming up here. I've got this one behind it, so I'll make sure that I make a bold enough line so I know one's in front. And then this one is falling that way. I'm going to have one coming up here. Why not? I'm going to have one coming up there. So not all the reeds are going to be all upright like this, are they? So I'm going to get on with that. And then maybe, just maybe, I might actually have a bulrush coming up here. I don't know yet, but once I've done that, I'll stand back and I'll analyse what I've done, and then I'll decide what I'm going to do over this side, if of course anything at all. I think it needs something. Quite at this moment in time, I'm not sure what, but I'll work it out as I go along. So I'm just going to start painting all this down here. You'll get lots of darkness in there eventually. So these are just marking lines, really, effectively. Coming right up there, that's good. Really ought to break these pastels. I'm a bit adverse to, because these are actually Dale Arani vintage pastels. I mean, I literally have thousands of these, but you can't get them anymore. And I've spent a lot of time searching the internet for these. Well, I will break them. Right, so we've got one coming here. That goes behind all the others. Looks like it's in front at the moment. That's just because I'm plotting the line. But that'll work. It gets thicker as it comes down to the bottom, and that'll give me lots of darkness down here. This one is going to be a bent over one. There. Just plotting everything in for where I might want it. There. I think, in all honesty, I think I really need one here. So I'm just going to start there where I think I might want it. And I think I'm going to bring it down there. Now you can see I didn't rub that one out, did I? And it's harder to lay the pastel on top of the other pastel. It's not extremely difficult, but it's not ideal. All these reeds will be refined, colours added, definition put in. Now I'm going to have one here. Pushes all that back, and not only does it push all that back, you don't have to worry too much about the detail that's here either. I think I really need something up here. So I'm going to have a twisted reed there. Again, I haven't brushed that out. Let me just brush that out. That's the trouble, you can get carried away. There, that's a bit better, and it's a bit higher as well, so that actually helps. And then I'll have him coming down here. Obviously that'll darken up down there and separate everything. So these are just plotting points for me at the moment. And then I'll start adding colour, tone, and then we'll see where we go with it. There we go. Yeah, I'm reasonably happy with that. I think the only thing I can really do is to colour it in and see what it looks like. So that's what I'll carry on doing. Right, I'll start putting some darker tone into that, I think. Just give me a second to find a dark tone. Use my Pierre Noir pencil just to put in the dark tone, so you can see that the light's coming that way, so just to give it a bit of definition, just so I know where I'm going with this. That's going to come behind there, just a little bit of light shading. This is going to change immensely from this, so don't get too stressed about it at the moment. I'm just putting in the tones so I know where I'm going with it. You can see already just by putting that in there, separation's coming. And this isn't going to be left black. That's in front of that. But it goes in front of that. So it's in front of this reed, but it's behind that reed. And that gives you a sense of depth as well. This one coming up here. This one, I'll just carry him on through there, just put a mark so that I know what I'm doing. He's going behind that one, but in front of this one. And then behind, no, we'll put him in front of that one. I have to make these decisions. So I'm just plotting in the tones before I start colouring. All looks very messy. It will. And this one, obviously I've now got him going in front, but that's okay. I'm just really drawing this in so I know where I'm going with it. It's giving me the sense of what I'm going to try and achieve. Got to add all the colours on the top afterwards. Right, okay, we've separated a few up there. Just give me the idea of where I'm going with it. All the black will probably disappear, replaced by darker greens, blues maybe. So now I've got my shadow side in effect. We'll have this reed that's bent over there coming behind there. It'll all make sense when you start colouring it in. Just marking it at the moment. There we go. Yeah, that's a bit better. I can always subtract or add whatever I need to do when I get to that point. I've got myself a cadmium yellow. I'm just going to put in some highlighted tones wherever I think that they're going to be. All this needs refining. Using a sharp edge. I don't expect you guys to be looking at this and thinking, oh my god, that's great. It really isn't, because it's early days, but at the end, hopefully, it'll all make sense. I mean, you never really know, do you? Play light off against dark in some areas. Got a lot of refining to do on this, a lot. That's when my blenders will come into handy. And other colours. Right, well hopefully at this point you can start seeing some separation. That's a million miles away from finished, but you can see where some reeds are going to go in front of other reeds. Now, a case from now is to add in your colours, deepen your shadow areas with colour, and then work on the highlights again. So you need to basically just blend this in whichever way you feel is appropriate. Okay, so you soften it in, and then you start adding in colour and deepening these dark areas, lightening the light areas. Okay, now you can do that in numerous ways. Here I've got a colour shaper. Okay, so I'm going to mix that together, that yellow and that green, get a nice sharper detail there. It softens and mutes down the green a bit, but keeps some remnant of highlight. You just keep working on them, and at some point they will start looking correct. Yeah, so you leave light areas and dark areas. The tops of these reeds, I'm going to get a kind of a terracotta-y type colour. Just quickly see if I can do that for you. So I'll just give you a quick impression of what I'm going to do. I'm going to add in some more colour and put a nice sharp edge onto it. And that's going to be a bit darker than that. And then that terracotta will come down into the yellow. Alright, and soften in. So it gives you the emulation of that reed. Okay, that'll be a lot darker and a lot more refined and smoother than that. You keep adding and subtracting until you think you've got it right. There's a bit of yellow. This will be darker up here and a lot sharper. You can just add in that yellow half areas showing, and then you down here it'll be a bit darker because it'll be against this this other reed. There'll be shadows in play. especially down here. It'll all become very dark down here. Alright, and then you can use the background to paint into it to sharpen it up even more, and then at some point, if you really want to, you can go in with a charcoal pencil if you really wanted to sharpen it up. Just keep working backwards and forwards with these lights and these dark tones. Alright, and you will probably, in all honesty, find areas you think, oh yeah, that looks nice, and you'll perhaps do it and work on that. So separating these two up, you can do that by the force of a shadow, and then I can separate that in front even more by the force of a highlight. Because you have to mute these down and get them to the correct colour that you want them to be. In effect, a bit like oil painting, I suppose. Not that I know much about oil painting, because I really don't. But eventually, given the addition of extra colours, shadows and highlights, we'll end up with something looking what we want it to look. I think the most important thing really is to get the tonal value correct, and then work on it from there. So you can see how that's separated up behind there now. Some of them you can have going into the distance by muting them out quite a lot. Whatever you do, it's not a 2-minute fix. You have to keep working at it. You're not going to just draw a reading and it's going to look what you want it to look. You've got to keep working at it until you get that sense of depth, realism, whatever it is you're looking for. It won't work on its own. So just keep working. Keep applying the pastel in lightly, and you'll eventually get to what you want. Okay. Use a colour shaper to just refine edges. Or a pencil, you could use a pencil if you wanted. And keep adding in the dark areas, adding in the light areas. The last thing you'll probably end up with doing is putting the highlights on the top. And you've got to keep working at it until you get to that point. Right, I'm going to just keep working at this. You can see the way forward, and I'm going to come back in a little while and show you where I've got to, and show you that this will eventually get to where it needs to get by the addition of light, dark and mid-tones, and just refining with a pencil or a colour shaper. I wouldn't recommend a paper stump because that just tends to take the pastel off, but anything soft will get you to where you need to be. But, right, I'm going to love you and leave you for a little while, and then I'll come back once I've added in what I want. Adding in another colour, so I thought I'd just bring you back for a second. One thing you must take into account is it's going to look better, worse before it starts looking better. Okay. Right, just dropping in, just to show you where I've got to. I've been adding in yellows, I've added in some browns, and I'm just kind of manipulating in with, I've put some blue greens in here just to show where the shadow areas are. And I'm kind of now working out where the shadows should be. I've added some black in here. At some point I'll go back over these highlights in the river, and I'll also put them behind here so it pushes the reeds forward. But at the moment I'm just kind of slowly but surely mixing, blending, trying to get my shadow areas in where I want them, and refining all of the structures. So I'm going to carry on with that, and then I'll look back in a little while, probably when we're closer to finished. But all this behind it is water, so I'm going to have reflections coming by there, and now I'm going to go over with the highlights again as well. So it'll all refine, it'll all get sharper, and it'll all hopefully get a little bit brighter as well, which helps when you blow the dust off. So I'll just, hopefully this top bit will darken up, push him back, this will lighten up, this will darken up, and that'll lighten up behind it and show that there's water behind it. So when I've got to that point, I'll come back and drop in again and show you where we got to. Okay, just a little update where you can see that I've darkened up down here, and I've added highlights around here, and I've basically just tried to blend them in. Now I can't say I'm entirely happy with that, because what I'm going to have to probably do at some point is refine highlights wherever I think they might be, try and sharpen up edges wherever I think they may need to be, and try and darken up wherever I think it might need to be. So it'll probably be a little bit on the swan there, to be perfectly honest with you, to push these forward. And here I've put a little bit of dark in just to try and reinforce and give some more definition to the water. So we're still a long way off, but we're going to keep plugging along, and I'm going to keep telling you what I'm doing. I'm going to darken up these, right, somehow, probably with a pastel pencil, to be fair. Lighten up that one because it's against dark. Put some highlights in, make sure that I've got the shadows where I need them. Probably darken up the bottom part of the swan here, and then lighten up, and then sort of just have a look at everything, and then go over and lighten and darken and tonally get it to what I need it to be again. So I'm going to carry on, and then I'll report back in later. What I am going to do is that I'm going to put a cream border around here just to tidy all the edges up, and that'll give me some idea of what it might eventually look like framed up. And usually when I get to sort of 3/4 of the way into a picture, I do that. I put a border around it, just around the edges, so it's kind of just like that, just to straighten everything up, brighten everything up, take away all the drudginess of the dirty paper and all that palaver, and that'll just brighten everything up, and that'll give you some idea of where you're going and what you might expect once that's framed or mounted. Anyway, I'll catch up with you in a little while. Just gives it more character again, because by blending it down you might lose your highlights, so you just have to go over it again and just get in them highlights. Because the pastel that you lay on will also help to blend. What I do sometimes, I must admit I haven't done it this time, I don't know why, I think it's because I haven't used these pastels for such a long time now. I break bits off. I take these tiny bits and I break them and sharpen them up that way. I don't know why I'm not doing that, but I probably will. Probably do that off camera. there. Right, so that one going across there, if we want to make it look as if it's behind, we just need to get some shadow onto it and sharpen up the one that's in front of it. Because you have to follow all the way through it. Okay, so I've got on and finished the painting. All the reeds were done in exactly the same way, and I've just kind of tried to define a few more areas and what have you. It's come out reasonably well. I'm reasonably happy with it. Now, to recap, I'd actually done all this background, especially in here. I'd done all this water, and I brushed out roughly the reeds where I wanted them. I then put a background layer of a mid-green. I then went over it with highlights and then added in a few colours here and there. I did exactly the same thing with the bulrushes. So I brushed out this area roughly. I drew it in with a darkish brown, mid-tone brown for the colour. I then added in the highlights, added in the dark, and then just played about with some sort of oranges and whatever, just till it looked what I wanted it to look. For the stem, or whatever this part is, I basically just done a light grey blue, and then just highlighted one side, sorry, not highlighted, shadowed one side roughly with a purple colour. Kind of the same with these stalks here, these parts here. I basically put in a mid-green and then put in a yellow highlight on one side. So all very easy stuff really. It's just that some people don't know how to go about it. Now, I could have put the green directly on top of the pastel, but I have to be honest and say that because there was so much pastel down there already, it was a case of I needed to bring back a bit of tooth so that I had enough tooth there to layer the next lot of pastel. Had I not done that, I would have been skimming over the surface, the tooth would have been filled up, and I definitely wouldn't have got the definition that I wanted. I'm not going to say it's perfect, but it's as good as what you can get where we are. And the background reeds, I just basically darkened and pushed them back, and the foreground reeds I lightened and pushed them forward. So we get some depth going on in here, and you can actually see some parts of the water behind these areas here. Same here. That's a case of just laying in little bits of colour and what I call dumbing them down. Taking away the intensity of them colours just to leave some lighter colour. Where you need it more intense is where the highlights are. And here basically it's just a light blue or light grey blue, again the same as this colour here, and basically put in some darker areas underneath where they were, because the light would be catching them that way. And that's basically how you go on. So same here, stems, reeds, and basically just make sure you get your highlights in the right place and your shadows in the right place. So the constructive part of this video is, if you want to lay some really deep, intense, defined pastel on top of other pastel, dependent on what paper you're using, that is. This is Sennelier board, Sennelier a la carte board, there's plenty of tooth on it. You brush that out and then you can draw the details in where you've brushed it out. You wouldn't do that with things like the swan, because there's nothing behind him as such. I mean, there might be areas where you may do that occasionally, so if you wanted, oh I don't know, let's say for argument's sake, you wanted a nice highlight in this area here, but you'd gone too dark, you'd probably just brush a little bit of that dark out and then put a little bit of highlight in. But invariably with the foreground stuff, the main stuff that doesn't have stuff behind it, you can actually just layer on pastel. You're not going to take it too far in that event. It's just where you want to put areas in front of other areas that effectively have already been finished, and then you want to add on top of it. Like I say, all this is basically made up out of my head, so it's a case of brushing it out, drawing it in, kind of negatively drawing in effect. So brushing it out and then just drawing the colours on top, because you've released that tooth. You've gone back as far as you can to the paper. So I hope that's of some help. Gives you some idea what to do. For those people who try to do pastels and lose the tooth of their paper, they now know a way that they can retrieve that tooth and they can add extra details on top without just adding them on top and then losing more and more tooth of that paper. So it's retrieve the tooth, lay the pastel on. So anyway, it's been lovely doing a video for you again. I hope it makes a lot of sense. And during the new year, today's my birthday, by the way, 59 today, 4th of Jan. And in the new year I'm going to do a few more videos and hopefully make them a bit more structured than they have been. Anyway, take care, have a nice day, and whomever, wherever you are, have a great year. Bye for now.